Okay, good evening, Social Media Breakfast Madison. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. My name is Corinne Burgermeister. I'm one of the board members here for Social Media Breakfast. I'm so excited to be here tonight. We're going to have a little fun and do some baking because I haven't done any holiday baking yet this year. And so now, if you're baking along with us, would be a good time to preheat your oven to 350. So yeah, let's get to it. About us, for those of you that are new, we are a nonprofit that educates people about social media, and we do that through monthly presentations and panels. We meet the third Wednesday of the month, which is today, and typically we meet in person, but we're virtual for the time being. If you haven't already, connect with us on social. You can find us at SMB Mad across all channels. And one thing that we do that we're very excited about is give away scholarships throughout the year. So if you're interested in attending a class or a conference on digital marketing, apply for a scholarship on our website, and we might be able to help make that happen for you. Next up, we have a picture of our board. This is an amazing group of people who work together to put on these events for you. If you have some extra time and you're interested in joining, you can check smbmad.org for more info on how to join. We have a couple more ways you can get involved. You could become a speaker. We're working right now on programming for the next year. So if you have a topic you want to speak about, reach out and let us know. You could also be a volunteer, a sponsor, or featured in our nonprofit spotlight. So info for all of that is on our website as well. And then to stay connected with us outside of these events, check out our Facebook group. It's called Social Media Madison Masterminds, a lot of M's. But it's a great group to talk through specific social media ideas, trends, problems you're having, and job postings too. So check that out. Looking ahead to next month or next year, we'll be joined by Lauren Simonis Hunter, and she'll be talking about SEO. She is super great, and you're going to learn a ton. So save the date for that. It is January 20th. Next, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Our events are free to attend, and we're so grateful to our sponsors for their support. So join me in thanking Dream Bank, Powder Keg, Metcalf, Subtle Strauss, Minuteman Press, and Talent CPAs. And we also want to give a big thank you to our creative partners who make us look good: AJ Photography, Melissa Carlson Creative, and Nick Polkowski. Next, I'm going to throw it over to Dream Bank.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Corinne. Hi, my name is Andy Frisky. I am a senior dream curator at Dream Bank. Excited to be here tonight. But yeah, it is an interesting time, right? Because I remember in years past being at the holiday party, and it's just, just same way for everybody, a little bit different this year. So a little bit of context about Dream Bank. So Dream Bank is a free community resource that is put on by American Family Insurance. The whole reason why we exist is to help inspire people to pursue their dreams. And in large part, we do that through the programs that we offer. So we typically offer right around 40 free events a month when we're not under a pandemic. And we've actually pivoted really well to the virtual space. And we're hosting right around 30 free events a month. Anything ranging from small business and entrepreneurial workshops to inspiration and motivational wellness speaker series. We host fitness-related activities in our space. We just wrapped up a nice virtual Santa campaign. So really trying to appeal to as many different dreamers as possible. One thing that I would really like to highlight, though, in particular is the kickoff of our dream coaching. So we're offering various coaching sessions throughout this next year in 2021. Starting with kind of a define and build intake event, which we just wrapped up our first one. The next one will be coming out, though, at the end of February, beginning of March. It's really geared towards people who maybe have an idea of what their dream is, but aren't sure what their next steps are. As well as, someone who maybe would like to have a dream but aren't sure the direction of where they should kind of head. We're there as dream curators to kind of help guide that process, and then ultimately transitions to other various forms of coaching. So please keep an eye out for that. We're very excited about that, put a lot of work into that event, and hope to see you there.
Cool. Thank you, Andy. Next, we'll hear from Elise with Powder Keg.
Good evening, everybody. So my name's Elise. I am with Powder Keg Web Design. Our fully in-house team, as you regulars already know, we all specialize in custom website design and development. And we actually just today posted our yearly article highlighting website design trends to expect in the coming year. So that's a really fun read. If you're interested, go check that out over on our blog. Our website is powderkegwebdesign.com. Go to the blog that's in our main menu. You can find the article there. We also will be ringing in the new year with a lot of really awesome discussions through our free webinars. So if you're interested in starting 2021 off on a really strong foot and learning something new, definitely go check those out. Again, those are free. You can find all of our webinars under the education tab of our website. So I know everyone's really excited to bake, so I'm gonna wrap it up there, but I hope everyone has a great holiday season and have fun baking tonight.
Cool. Thank you, Elise. And then last, we'll hear from Hannah for this month's nonprofit spotlight.
Thanks, Corinne. Hi, Social Media Breakfast Madison. For this month's nonprofit spotlight, we're actually going to feature 5 organizations that work to distribute food and essential resources in our community year-round. The first one you can give your time to. Second Harvest Food Bank is looking for volunteers for their food distribution efforts, and you can sign up for that at secondharvestmadison.org/volunteer. The second, you can donate money to East Madison Community Center, and $10 feeds one family for a week through their box food pantry distribution. $50 provides 16 meals for kids during the week. And you can do that at eastmadisoncc.org/donate. Third, you can give food or other items to Goodman Community Center. They are looking for dry and perishable foods, personal care items, and then they also have a list of needs for their preschool and teen programs at goodmancenter.org/donate-goods. Number 4, you can give to Middleton Outreach Ministry, and that's momhelps.org. Their top 10 most needed items are toilet paper, which obviously has been in high demand in the pandemic, sugar, which we're going to be using tonight, brown sugar, instant oatmeal, Honey Nut Cheerios, which are a crowd favorite, gluten-free pasta, dishwashing liquid, feminine hygiene products, laundry detergent, and Kleenex. 5th, you can give food or other items to River Food Pantry. They're taking in-kind donations of boxed dinners, a lot of different canned vegetables, Jell-O, paper towels, etc. So definitely, if you have extra items in your pantry, or if you feel in the giving and generous spirit, definitely check out those organizations.
Cool. Thank you, Hannah. Well, that wraps up our announcements, and now it's time to get baking. We are so excited to have Shawn from the Baked Lab here with us tonight. The Baked Lab is all about creating modern confections for the audacious. Shawn's passion for food, design, storytelling, collaboration, and a whimsical taste for magic are infused into each creation he makes. Whether it's the wedding cake of your dreams, a delicious display of desserts, or a box of macarons to share with someone special, Shawn looks to inspire a sense of nostalgia while delighting with unforeseen discovery. We are so glad to have you here tonight, so please welcome Shawn.
Good evening, Corinne. How are you?
Good. I got all my ingredients laid out. I haven't measured things yet, but I'm ready to go.
No worries at all. Where did you get that description of my business?
Oh, it was on our Facebook
I'm
event.
just looking. I was like, who wrote that? No.
It was very good.
So I'm Shawn from the Baked Lab. I have been teaching these virtual baking classes throughout the past 8 months or so. This is like a story of sort of pivoting during the pandemic and trying to find a new way and a new angle to connect with people and to share my passion, since the wedding season kind of fell flat this past summer. I know, Corinne, you have joined me for a baking class or two.
Yeah.
And I actually think we've got a couple of people who have been taking some of the classes as well joining us tonight. They have self-proclaimed themselves as lab rats. So if any of those are joining tonight, thank you for joining. These baking classes are always just all about fun, super easy. None of the recipes are super difficult. It's just about having a good time in the kitchen, being able to connect over food, chat, and then get to share a delicious product with your family and friends that you created yourself. And that's something that for me is baking is all about, is being able to create something and then get to share it with people, right? So tonight we are making an orange Aperol loaf, which is more or less just a fancy name that I came up with for a pound cake. which most of us have probably made. But I'm going to show you a little something different that I do to make my pound cake, just a little different than everybody else's. Do you know why a pound cake got named pound cake?
Because it weighs a pound.
Kind of. So initially, yeah, no, that was really good. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Very
But
heavy.
what was that?
I said they're very heavy.
They are very heavy. So the idea behind the original pound cake, which has just kept its name, is that it was basically a pound of each ingredient. So before we had like actual like tools for measuring, it was easy to be like, okay, equal parts butter, sugar, flour, and eggs, and then just dump it all together, mix it up, and bake it. Oftentimes like over fire or something like that, right? So that's kind of where that name came from, and it's sort of just stuck, and we continue to call it that. Although the ratios often have changed a little bit, so this one's not exactly weight for weight. But do you have any questions before we get started?
Hey, Shawn, it's David from Social Media Breakfast. Hi, everybody. I'm sort of here not baking, but I am monitoring questions and comments as they're coming in. We already have a question that I wanted to get to before you started. Jill wants to know, can you prepare this tonight and bake it tomorrow?
You cannot prepare this tonight and bake it tomorrow.
Okay.
With most cake recipes, especially anything that has both a baking powder and or baking soda and a liquid, as soon as those two chemicals, or as soon as that chemical hits a liquid, it starts to react. So if you put it in your refrigerator overnight, you're going to lose all of that effect. So you're just going to end up with a pancake, basically.
Okay.
Which could be delicious.
Sure. You never know. But sorry, Jill, if you want to make it tonight, you need to bake it tonight, it sounds like.
So as we get started, a couple of things. I'll give you a little heads up in case you decide to put this off until tomorrow or another day. We're going to bake it at 350. So if you haven't preheated your oven, go ahead and preheat it to 350. And then also, it's going to bake for about 50 to 55 minutes. Everybody's oven is slightly different, so you never know. You just got to kind of check it and keep an eye on it in those last couple of seconds. So, Corinne, do you want to just get started?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to set this up in 3 stages to get ourselves prepared for this. So the first, what we're going to do is get all of our liquids together, and then we'll go backwards to the dry, which is what we'll actually start when we go to mix. So before we get that, what I'm going to do is grab, I am baking this in a standard loaf pan. It's about 8.5 inches by like 4.5 inches. Don't worry too much about the size of it. The way that I like to prep a pan like this for a cake or for a pound cake is by taking a piece of parchment paper. So if you happen to have parchment paper on hand, what I do is I like to look at the bottom of my pan and I try to make a strip that's roughly the same width as the bottom of my pan. Does that make sense, Corinne?
Yes.
Okay. So, somewhere around 7 inches, 8 inches is great on this, this piece of paper here. So the way that I like to prep this is I usually just take another piece of like a little bit of butter, or if you have nonstick spray, or if you have a little bit of oil, you could put it on the end of like a paper towel. And I just, for this one, just kind of rub the inside of it. So if you have spray or something, it'll just help prevent it from sticking too much. If you don't have it, a little bit of butter, a little bit of oil, all will help prevent it from sticking. Also, just as like a side, dark pans are actually really terrible to use, but I'm using one tonight. That's all I have in the house.
Wait, why are they terrible to use, Shawn? Tell us.
Yeah, so they conduct heat. They conduct a lot more heat easier. So like Corinne's using a more silver light aluminum pan, it looks like, which is like ideally what I would bake with. When I bake my cakes, they're all in like a really light aluminum color. and they conduct heat a little bit more evenly and won't brown as dark. But anyway, that's just a little extra there. So I put some butter in here, and basically what I just do is take my long strip and kind of stick it down in the center and just kind of stick it up the side of the walls and then kind of fold it over the side a little bit.
Perfect.
Does that make sense? Yep. Awesome. Corinne, if I am like flying too fast, just let me know.
Okay.
And if anybody has questions, feel free to ask David in the comments and David will get it over to us. So again,
I will say, Shawn, I mean, this isn't really a question, but you have a lot of fans. A lot of fans in the comments saying hey. So I know you can't see them, but I hope you're feeling the love right now.
Awesome. I do. I'm so grateful for like everybody who has been following the Bake Lab journey and learning a lot in the kitchen with me over the past 8 months. It's been a lot of fun. So thanks for joining us tonight. It's weird not getting to interact with them because I'm so used to being able to like chat with everybody and ask questions as we go, but it's all good. I see you out there. Okay, look, I got my pan ready to go. I'm gonna put that to the side and we'll come back to that when we're ready to throw it in the oven. Okay, so now what we're gonna start with is we're gonna pull all of our wet ingredients together. Ideally, whenever you're making a cake, you wanna make sure that your ingredients, especially anything that's been kept in the refrigerator, is room temperature or warmer. So butter is a little bit of an outlier. Depending on the recipe, we take butter in different temperatures, but eggs, milk, all of that kind of stuff, we don't want it cold. If you've ever made a cake batter and you're mixing up the butter and flour and then you add your eggs and all of a sudden it looks like it like curdles, that's because the eggs were cold, which then made the butter seize up again. So the butter turns back into cold chunks and is not distributed appropriately. So just something to keep in mind. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab 4 eggs. I'm gonna grab some 1/4 cup of milk, and I'm gonna grab my oil. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a bowl here and we're just gonna add that together. So I am gonna add, oh, Corinne's running to her refrigerator to get that cold milk.
No, I didn't let it warm up.
It's all good. It's all good. What you can do is very briefly, like throw it in the microwave once you've got it all together for like 10 seconds. Once you've got eggs in there, it starts to get a little risky if you're gonna cook the egg inside of here. So just watch out for that. But basically what I'm gonna do is take a little bowl and I'm gonna crack all 4 of my eggs into the bowl. So I'm throwing all the eggs in here. Oh.
Okay, while you're cracking your eggs, can I ask another pan question?
Yeah.
So Heather wants to know how you feel about glass pans or cast iron pans. I think you started something with the pan questions.
I never use glass. I'm not sure a good answer for that. Cast iron is going to give you a very different product. Obviously, it conducts heat like crazy. We often cook like cornbread in a cast iron pan, which adds that really nice dark texture and crust to the outside of it, which is delicious for that. But for something like this, you're going to get too hard of a crust on it, so I would recommend not doing that.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So I got 4 eggs in here. I am going to add a 1/4 cup of milk to the eggs.
And Anna wants to know, does it matter if it's skim, whole, 2%?
Hi, Anna. Yeah, I always bake with full fat, so always whole every time you bake. Like, come on. If you're going to bake and you're going to make like a pound cake, like, don't put skim milk in there.
But let's say that's all Anna has.
Totally
Can Anna use the skim milk?
Totally fine. You totally can use it. Here's the issue with that. It's got a different percentage of fat solids in it, right? So like, depending on what you're making, not so much this and not so much for like a home baker is it going to make a big difference. But if you're like producing pound cake by the pounds, you're going to need, you want like that full fat in there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely. And can you remind everybody how much milk? Is it a 1/4 cup? Colin wants to know.
1/4 cup, yeah.
All right.
So 1/4 of a cup right inside of your 4 eggs. What we're gonna do now to these eggs is add our 2 teaspoons of oil. So I'm just gonna grab my little teaspoon measuring here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just add any kind of neutral oil, whether it's canola, vegetable. If you wanna get bougie, you could use like sunflower oil or grapeseed oil or something like that. Olive oil tends to have a very strong flavor, so I wouldn't use that in here, but I always just use like good old canola oil. It's just easy. This is more of like a texture kind of thing. It adds a little bit of moisture, but also adds a little bit of, adds to that like soft texture to our cake. Cool. So we've got 4 eggs. We've got a 1/4 cup of milk. We've got 2 teaspoons of a neutral oil in here. What I am gonna do at this point is just give this a nice little whisk to break all the eggs up. Don't go crazy here. We're not trying to add too much air at this point. We're just trying to break it up. Corinne, how you doing over there?
Good. Just a little whisking. I have a whisk over here. Nice medium bowl.
Nice, nice. See these, like, it's not so much a big deal for this, but like I try to break up all that egg white so it's not just all combined. Okay, that's all of our wet ingredients.
Okay, and we have like a nice yellow. I don't know.
Nice yellow, kind of frothy vibe going on here. Yeah, cool.
My shirt.
How you feeling about that?
Good. I'm excited.
Okay, I'm just gonna put that to the side. What we're gonna do now is hopefully we've got 2 sticks of butter that have been sitting out. They should be at room temperature. Mine have been sitting out for a while, so they're a little bit past room temp, but like ideally room temperature, you should be able to like stick your finger into it. It should remain whole. It shouldn't feel like super oily yet. It should just kind of be able to put an indent in your butter and you're good to go. Cool.
Yep.
You got your 2 sticks. Awesome. But that's it. What was that?
Start like unpeeling it.
Don't worry about it at the moment. I was just grabbing them, put them to the side. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is prep our dry ingredients. So, Corinne, have you ever made a cake before and done what's called the creaming method, where you start by adding sugar and butter to your bowl and creaming them together? Does that sound familiar?
No, I mean, I can picture what it looks like, but honestly, I don't bake much.
Okay. It's all good. I won't take too much offense to that. So usually when we make a cake, we usually start with creaming butter and sugar together, right? And the idea behind that is that's where we're getting all of that air that's going to be added to our cake. So ideally what we do is we throw the softened butter and the sugar into our bowl. We mix it on like medium high for like 5 minutes, and it gets super white and fluffy. And then when we start to add stuff in, we've started to incorporate air from the beginning of the process, because if not, you're just going to end up with a dense cake all the time, which nobody likes. The trouble with that is, have you ever heard of the idea that like once you start adding flour to a cake recipe or something, people are like, you just got to mix it really quickly because you don't want it to like, you don't want to over mix it and cause a tough cake. That's because once you start adding liquid and flour together, do you know what happens?
Then is that where it makes gluten?
Yes. So there's a good work. Did I talk about that in one of our classes?
No, but I know a little science.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so there's a protein in flour called gluten, right? Everybody's heard of it. Everybody's made sourdough bread over the past 8 months because that was the big craze at the beginning of the pandemic, right? So when we're making a bread and we're using flour, we want to work that flour, like kneading it because it's developing that gluten, which makes those like beautiful big strands that trap air when they puff up in the oven and all of that. But with a cake, we want to inhibit gluten development because we don't want a tough cake. We don't want it full of holes. So what we're doing tonight is the opposite of the creaming method. We're doing what's called the reverse creaming method, which what we're going to do is we're going to add all of our dry ingredients to a bowl, and we're going to add the butter to that, and we're going to mix it up. And what's going to happen is the fat is going to coat all of the gluten, all the flour, and it's going to prevent it from gluten development, which is going to make like a really nice tender cake. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good. And then so you're going to be using your big KitchenAid mixer. I have just like a little handheld mixer, but that should be fine.
Both are great. So here's the deal. Once we get to the mixing stage, whether you're using a KitchenAid mixer or a Cuisinart mixer or a handheld mixer, we're going to do the first piece of this on low. So make sure that you go really slow and lightly. We don't want to like over beat it at that stage. Okay. So grab whatever bowl you're going to mix the big, the cake batter into. So I'm going to use my bowl for my stand mixer here. And what I'm going to add to this bowl first is a cup and a half of flour. For this type of recipe, I'm just going to use a all-purpose flour, kind of middle of the road. A little hint here, sometimes, if you know me, I hate baking with cup measurements because it's not even a good measurement at all. But what I like to do is kind of take like whatever I'm using to get the flour out of my bucket here and kind of fluff it up a little bit, because we don't worry about it too much. You can take your cup and stick your cup in there and just kind of like fluff it up a little bit. Add some air back into there because we don't want to pack this tight. You're doing a great job, Corinne.
Thank you.
Okay, so then I just kind of, you can scoop up, just kind of be light about it. Scoop it up and then level it off. Just kind of, yep, perfect. Just use your finger and go over it. So I'm just kind of like adding some flour here, and then I'm just going to kind of go like that. And then add that to your bowl. And so we want a cup and a half of that. I'm kind of cheating right now and doing like a cup and sort of a half.
Okay.
You know, I would normally use a kitchen scale, but here we are. Okay.
Shawn, so I know we've got some eager beavers here who are like already looking ahead.
Okay.
But Hannah wants to know, when it comes to the fruit, can she use frozen and like blueberries perhaps instead of like oranges, or do they need to be thawed? Can she use a different flavor?
Yeah.
What do you think? I know we're not quite there yet, but it sounds like she's already thinking about the next step.
Yeah. So with this type of recipe, we're not actually adding fruit to this that's got any density. We're adding a zest to the batter itself. So I wouldn't necessarily add like a frozen fruit to here. The other thing you need to consider when you're using a frozen fruit in any type of baking, especially when it's going into a batter that's going to go into the oven, is that there's so much liquid in that frozen fruit. There's so much water in that frozen fruit. So if you threw a bunch of blueberries in here that were frozen and then threw it in the oven, what's going to happen is all of that liquid is going to release, and you're going to end up with a soggy cake.
Mm-hmm.
So just watch out for that. So if you're using a zest, you can easily make this into a lemon cake and switch out the orange. I was trying to find something that was like, I love Aperol. So I was like, what's Aperol? Well, it's orangey. So let's do an orange zest today. Does that work?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
Perfect.
Okay. So in my bowl, I've got that cup and a half of flour. I'm going to add now a cup of sugar, just regular white sugar. This one, you don't have to be so like hardcore about, because usually sugar is pretty, I don't know, it's not, as long as it's not all clumped together. If you notice, I totally broke the handle off of this.
Oh no!
I know.
I just thought it was a fancy new kind of measurer that I hadn't seen before.
Nope, totally just broke it off.
You need to like treat yourself to a new little set of measuring cups.
I know, I'm so used to using a scale that it just doesn't matter, because I just pour everything into a bowl and measure it on the scale. So we'll see. Maybe I'll treat myself. Okay, you got your cup of sugar in here now?
Yep, sugar and flour.
Okay, go ahead and add now a teaspoon of baking powder and a half a teaspoon of salt. Okay, so a teaspoon of baking powder and a half a teaspoon of salt. Salt we always add to just a little bit. It heightens flavors, brings out the flavors, you know. Always want to salt our
We got
food.
some people over here in the comments, Shawn, who are really, you know, just throwing on the compliments. Colin is just saying, what a smart baker you are.
Aww.
It's just so kind of Colin, isn't it? Thanks, Colin.
I feel like you're really putting the lab into baked lab. Like I'm learning
Absolutely.
all these different ingredients.
Yeah, you know, that's something that if you bake with me is something that I love to talk about, is like why stuff works and why stuff doesn't. And let me tell you, like every time I bake, it's a learning process for me as well. Like you think you know, and then you do something and you're like, what happened? What caused that? But it's a science. So it's like, if you know more about what you're doing, it's like easier to figure out why something went wrong and improve it for next time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've got a teaspoon of baking powder and a half teaspoon of salt in here. The last thing we are going to add to this is the zest of one orange, okay? So go ahead and zest your orange. I left my zester.
Ooh, Corinne's already been zesting.
I did.
Oh, I love that.
Really, I was nervous about my zester is terrible, and I didn't want to do it on camera. So,
Well, you know what? You're ahead of me because I left my like legit zester at the kitchen, so I don't really have one. So I'm not actually gonna make. I'm just gonna make a regular pound cake tonight. If you're not using an orange or a fruit, you could totally and honestly, in this you could do the same thing. Is just add like a teaspoon of vanilla to your wet ingredients. That'll also add a little bit of flavor. So if you're not using something, or if you want to, just add a little bit of vanilla extract to your wet ingredients. Vanilla is a pretty standard flavor to throw into things. Just add a little bit. That's not just sugar.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so throw your zest in here.
Yep.
Cool. We got that. So in our bowl, we've got a cup and a half of flour. We've got a cup of sugar. We've got. Do you know why? I'm asking so many questions. Okay, do you know why? So you know how I talked about like a pound cake being 1 pound of each, right?
Yeah.
Do you know why we have a cup and a half of flour and only a cup of sugar?
No idea.
Because sugar weighs more than flour, right?
Oh.
So if you were to measure them on a scale, they would be closer in proximity of weight.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's why cups are like the worst possible measurement for baking, because they don't mean anything. Yeah. Okay. So we've got our flour, we've got our sugar, we've got our baking powder, we've got some salt, we've got our orange zest. Okay. So I'm going to throw this on my stand. If you're using a KitchenAid or something with a paddle attachment, that's what I'm going to use for this. Okay. If you're using just your regular handheld mixer, it'll just have like, you know, the regular little mixy thing at the end of it. Yeah, I love that.
Now, is that the technical term, the regular mixy thing?
David, that is the exact technical term.
Okay, just making sure.
It's called the mixy thing at the end. Okay. Okay. So let's see if we can get a little closer. Okay, you can sort of see it.
Cool.
Yeah, you can sort of see in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is just put this on low to stir it for like 15 seconds. It's gonna get a little loud. So just kind of put it on low, get all of those dry ingredients mixed up. We wanna make sure that we give this batter a chance by mixing all of this up at the first stage here.
All right, so while you're mixing, I feel the need to tell you that we have someone, this is Social Media Breakfast Madison. However, it looks like Doree is watching from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, along with us. So she may be the furthest away. If you're further away than Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, please say so. But that's kind of exciting, right?
That's amazing. Very cool. Thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you're baking along. Let us know in the comments if you are baking.
Well, I know for a fact that Melissa is actually on the couch with her wine taking notes. So it sounds like Melissa might be baking later.
Okay.
I love
Okay.
that.
So what was that, Corinne?
I was gonna say the video will be up on our Facebook page, so if you want to watch it at a different time, you can always bake later too.
Absolutely. And Martha wants to know if you can hand mix, Shawn.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
It's going to be a little bit more challenging with this type of recipe. But yeah, you can totally hand mix a little bit. So here's what I would say. So the next step that we're going to do with our bowl here is we are going to take our 2 sticks of butter, and this is when you get a little bit messy. And I'm just going to take this and kind of take some chunks of it and just drop all of it in. So I'm chunking up the butter and adding it to the dry ingredients. All 2 sticks of it, okay?
How big are we chunking it here?
Like, it doesn't matter. I just kind of just grab it in like, tablespoon and a half, 2 tablespoons. It's not a big deal. I'm just trying to break it up a little bit before it all gets added in. Okay, so I'm just kind of chunking this out, adding it to my mixture here. What's great is that it's soft enough that it's going to coat all of our flour and dry ingredients, but it's not going to, it's not cold, so it's not going to just like stay in big chunks. Mm-hmm. Okay, so with a KitchenAid mixer, what you want to do is make sure that you mix this on like speed 2, just above stir. If you are using a handheld mixer, you're going to want to do it at the lowest possible speed.
Okay.
What we're looking for in this process is just to basically, it's going to break down the butter. There is a lot of fat in this recipe. So oftentimes when I'm doing this, it just kind of disperses throughout. It's going to become somewhat of a batter this time. But what we're trying to do is incorporate air into here. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this on 2 for about 1.5 minutes or so. So while we're all mixing and it gets a little noisy in here, now is a great time to grab your cocktail and your glass of wine and take a really long 1.5 minute sip.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm gonna add this back on, and I've just got it on 2, and it's just kind of breaking all the fat down, breaking it up, dispersing it throughout the flour here. Don't put it on high. You're going to end up with flour everywhere, and it's going to become just a gross mass. So we're just breaking it up, and having a cocktail at the same time.
Shawn, Anna wants to know, again, a little bit maybe ahead of the game here, but are there any other liquids other than Aperol that would be tasty in this recipe?
Yeah. Anything that you could think of that would go with orange. So basically the Aperol is just going to come into the glaze that we put on top of it. So like anything that would go with orange. You could do like even like orange and bourbon. You could do, I'm trying to think what else I have.
I think I'm going to do brandy because
Brandy.
it's old fashioned, so I have a little extra brandy around here.
Totally. I love that. That's a great idea. Yeah. Okay. So really quick, you might be able to see in my bowl that it started to kind of create a dough here. What I want to do is mix this for another 30 seconds, a little bit higher. This is when we're going to incorporate some air into this batter, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put it up to about 5, speed 5, and just kind of let it mix for a second here. You're going to notice that if you're using a mixer like this, it's clumping in the center, and now that it's more air is being incorporated, it's dispersing a little bit more. So I'm just letting it mix. Okay. So I'm looking for something that looks a little bit like that. Everybody see that? Yeah. How you doing, Corinne?
It's okay. I feel like mine's not clumping up so much like that.
Okay. Was the butter soft?
It's getting there. Yeah. I'll patiently watch to see what you do next, and then I will copy it.
Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take our wet ingredient, our bowl of wet ingredients, and add about a fourth of it at a time and beat it on about 3 or 4. So sort of like medium-ish speed until it's completely incorporated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, what was that?
I'm looking at your recipe, and it says go until it looks like Parmesan cheese. So we are looking parmy here. So it's looking good.
Okay. Okay. As long as the butter is soft and broken up, you're good to go.
Yeah, looking good.
Mine is a little bit, because my butter is soft, it's a little bit past that, and then I added some more air, so it's all good. We got a little more.
Shawn, that question about liquids really got people started asking other questions about liquids. There's quite a few people I think they want your validation that their particular liquid of choice is going to be good. Okay. So we've got Anna asking about it. I believe it's Italicus. We've got Martha asking about licorice. Is it anisette? I apologize if I don't know what. So I don't know what some of these are.
Sure.
Can you speak to any of that?
Sure. So like licorice there and like an anise seed, right? Like is like fennel, kind of all in the same arena where it's that like slightly bitter, which also Aperol has a bitter taste to it, right? Any of that would be delicious. Italicus would probably be delicious. Here's the deal. You're making a glaze that's going to go on top of it. And it's like the glaze is so easy that if you make it and you're like, yeah, that don't taste what I want it to taste like, just like remake it. It's going to be so quick and so easy that it's really easy to remake.
Okay, well, and I mean, I think someone else, it looks like Joy is going to use triple sec. So there's a lot of creative people out there. And also, I think I totally did not pronounce some of those things right. So my bad.
It's all good.
But also one other question
we'll
too,
we'll have a lesson in liquor later.
Yes. Oh, please. Well, I think another question that came in from Doree about the process of the dry ingredients and the butter first. She's wondering what other types of cakes would you do this way with, and I think she specifically referenced, again, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but a bûche Noël, a bûche Noël.
A bûche de Noël, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it really depends on the recipe. So like a bûche de Noël, you're most likely going to use more a little bit different of a process, which is separating out the eggs. So you end up with making a batter that has the egg yolks and sugar whisked together, and then you whisk the egg whites by themselves into a meringue, and then you fold it in, and then you bake it like that. So this type of recipe this type of creaming method is more for like a traditional like birthday type cake where it's like American butter cake, like dense and heavy, comparatively to like a French cake, which would be something like bûche de Noël. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still
so much.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. I was more interested in making sure I said it correctly. So thank you for educating me on how to say words.
Yeah. Not a lot of people make bûche de Noëls, especially like in this area, but Dan Fox and his team over at Heritage Tavern make an annual bûche de Noël that you can buy online this year. Totally go support them.
That is on my list for Christmas this year, and I saw he just posted like their Christmas to go menu, and that looks awesome too.
Yeah. They're like
in fairness to Shawn, the person who asked about the bûche de Noël, was
Yeah.
the person from Oklahoma. So you
Amazing.
said this is not a thing that happens around here. You were correct.
Right? It's, yeah, not a lot of people make it around here. It's a little labor intensive, right? So, yeah, we just don't have a lot of places that make it around here. Okay, before we let this sit too long, I'm going to move ahead, and we can definitely, please keep asking questions and adding comments. We'll definitely get to them. We just want to make sure that people are moving along with their batter here. So what I'm going to do is put this back onto a low speed. I'm going to add about 1/4 of my wet ingredients into here. We're going to see it slosh around a little bit, and then I'm going to pick it up a little bit to medium speed. This is also where we're incorporating air. So each step of the way, we're incorporating air. So I'm giving it about 15 seconds. And it's starting to look like it came back together, right? So now it's a cohesive mass going on in here. So I'm going to slowly add a little bit more, so another 4, and put it back up to medium speed, and let it all slosh around, and then incorporate. Oh man, I've got a beautiful batter here tonight. Okay, so I've got it going here again. I've got another 4th incorporated. I'm going to now add another 4th. So I've got just about 1/4 of this left. I'm going to put it back up to medium speed. And while I'm waiting, I'm going to grab a spatula here. Before we add that last little 4th cup or so, what I'm going to do is kind of scrape down the bowl and get everything, especially underneath, kind of picked up and moved to the center of the bowl, kind of scrape off my my paddle here. How you doing, Corinne?
Good. Things are going good. It's looking pretty. It's smelling good. I think we're getting like very close and ready to go.
So what I'm going to do, have you added your your wet ingredients?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is add my last 4th of the wet ingredients. I'm going to mix it until it combines, and then I'm going to put my speed up for about 30 seconds to a little bit higher, so maybe somewhere around 6. And it's going to be its last opportunity to kind of gather some air. So I'm mixing it all together.
Shawn, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but Amy is asking if you added any orange juice to the wet ingredients.
Any more what?
If you added orange juice to the wet ingredients.
No, I did not. Nope, just the zest.
Could you?
I don't have a good answer for that.
Okay.
I have not tried it on this particular recipe. I'm saving the orange juice for my glaze.
Perfect.
Okay. So the zest, so let's be honest, the zest is where all of the flavor in a fruit really is. It's where all those essential oils are hanging out and waiting to like come to life. So a little bit of zest into this is going to add a ton of orange flavor. You probably can smell it. Corinne, can you smell the orange?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to give this a quick whip at a little bit higher of a temperature. Last time for it to all come together. And then we'll be ready to go. Okay, I'm digging it. Okay, so this is what I've got going on here. I am going to take this off. I'm going to move this over. Get this out of the way. Then I'm just going to kind of give it a big scrape and pull everything together one more time, scraping from the bottom, all of that. And I've got myself a nice pound cake dough, or batter, I should say, not really a dough. Okay, so I'm going to come back, Corinne, and grab my prepared sheet pan, my prepared bread pan here, and just dump all of this directly in. Scrape as much.
Shawn,
yeah.
Matt wants to know if what about adding orange extract or flavoring?
Yeah, you could add like a tiny bit of orange extract or flavoring. That won't really ruin too much. I would do just, a half a teaspoon, maybe even less than that, a quarter of a teaspoon. Orange, like any type of extract, especially like a citrus or something like that, can often have a very strong flavor. And you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to taste like, I don't know, potpourri or something like that. Is that still a thing? Potpourri?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I'm just kind of evening this out a little bit so it's all level. And I've got myself my pan ready to go here. So, Corinne, how you doing?
We're looking good.
We're looking good?
Yeah.
You want to show it off?
Sure. Here it is.
Oh, and you lost some.
Oh, no. Okay, don't see that.
It's all good. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Okay, I love that. That's what's so fun about baking in your own kitchen. Right?
We'll get the screenshots of that, right?
Yeah, totally. There's going to be memes. Okay, so I've got my leveled off pan here. I'm going to throw this right into the oven. We're going to bake it at that 350 for about 50 to 55 minutes. And what's going to come out is a bread that looks something like this, right? Something that's very characteristic of a pound cake is this little crack down the center. It's definitely supposed to be there, right? It's steam releasing as it hits. So if you're watching it bake, it's going to look like it's like a nice domed top. And then eventually towards the last like 10 minutes, it's going to break and cause this crack down the middle. Some bakers actually on top of their batter will pipe a row of straight up softened butter down the center of their batter. And that will create a really beautiful crack down the center of it. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. So did you throw yours in the oven?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Colin wants to know if it's the center oven rack.
Center oven rack. Yeah, for sure. This is in a regular conventional home oven, right? Center rack. It's perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Also, I was just going to say really quickly, this is not related to the baking, but earlier we talked about how we had someone watching from Oklahoma. It does seem that we have someone watching from even further away than that. Bonnie has written to say that she is watching and baking from Canada this evening, about an hour outside of Toronto.
Amazing. So cool. Thanks for joining us. That's really awesome. Very cool. Okay. Do we have any other questions at the moment about the bake itself?
No, I think we've been staying on top of them. I think we're all caught up.
Awesome. Well, what I'm going to do now is just show you how I make the glaze for this. What I would say is you can either make it, don't put it in the refrigerator, make sure you cover it with plastic wrap or it's going to get hard and crusty pretty easily because it's just powdered sugar basically. Once you pull this out of the oven, give it a little while to cool down for a second because if you pour a sugar glaze on top of it, it's just going to kind of like fall off. So give it a little bit of a second to cool down and breathe. I take this out I've let it like cool on the rack for about 10 minutes and then I just take it out of the pan and let it continue to cool. It'll cool pretty quickly. Okay, so what I do to make my glaze is I grab my orange. I have this really awesome like juicer.
I like that. And then it'll like hold all the juice for you.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Oh.
It's so awesome. So a quick little hint, whenever you're trying to juice a lemon or an orange or a grapefruit or something like that, have you ever seen like to roll it really hard on your countertop?
Yeah, I feel like that's very satisfying.
It is very satisfying. Sometimes, depending on like if it's cold or whatnot, you can kind of feel it like breaking up inside. So I just break it up it's going to help the juicing process so much easier. I'm going to take a knife. I'm going to go ahead down the center here and cut it open. And then I'm going to just juice it into my little juicer here. That just helps me not only juice it, but make sure I got no seeds in there.
Okay, and I'm juicing into a bowl. I just have like a smallish bowl. Is that good?
Totally fine. Totally fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take a little bowl here. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of powdered sugar to this bowl. So I'm going to grab my powdered sugar here.
Can you remind Charlene how long it's supposed to be in the oven for?
Yeah, it's going to be in there for about 50 to 55 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I'm just going to Corinne, this is like whenever you're making a glaze, this is the easiest glaze that you could ever make. It could go on powder, like it could go on donuts, it could go on cookies, it could go on whatever you want, really. Here's the deal. So I always just randomly start with powdered sugar in my bowl. Depending on the consistency you want, you just add as much or as little liquid as you need to get to a consistency that makes sense for the product that you're doing that day.
Okay.
Right? So I'm just like, I don't need to be very strict with this. I just know that I'm going to want about 1.5 cups or so of liquid just to make sure that I have enough to cover my cake here. So I just added roughly 1.5 cups of sugar, powdered sugar, not granulated, powdered, right? And then I'm going to start by adding 2 tablespoons of my orange juice to this. So 2 tablespoons of orange juice. Oh, look at that color. It's pretty awesome.
So pretty.
Isn't it? And then I'm just going to add about a tablespoon of Aperol to this. So if you don't like Aperol, don't do this. Aperol is a little bitter. It's definitely got a very distinct flavor. I love bitter drinks. I love bitter liqueurs. So I'm like all for this. But just make it orange if you want, or add a different liquor to it, or add some vanilla to it. So I just added that in. It's also going to make this like really cool pinkish color. And then here's the deal. I have no idea right now whether or not this is going to be the consistency that I actually want. Anna, who I think is watching, this may or may not be your spoon. Sorry.
She's definitely watching and she wants her spoon back.
Did she say that?
No.
Not that I'm aware of, but if she is watching, say hello. Also, we had someone ask, Colin wants to know, what is the target internal temperature of the loaf?
Yeah, so that's a question. The target internal, Colin, are you trying to stump me or something? The internal temperature of your loaf should be somewhere around 200 degrees. I usually, as soon as I hit late 90, not like 197, 98, 99, I take that baby out. But I appreciate that question. When you start baking or cooking specifically by temperature, oh my God, everything gets so much easier. Okay. Are you mixing yours up, Corinne?
Yeah, it is. It's smelling really good. I ended up using brandy. So
amazing.
Brandy and
I
orange.
love it.
Yeah.
So I'm ending up with this like beautiful, like peachy color.
Ooh.
It's got the orange, it's got the Aperol. I'm getting close to a consistency I like, right? You want to make sure that you get it all mixed up. I often use a fork for this. It's easier to break it all up than a spoon.
I feel like mine just feels like a little too liquidy, so maybe more sugar.
Yeah, if it feels a little too liquidy, you can add a little bit of sugar to it.
This just in from Anna herself. She does want her spoon back in all caps.
So I'm guessing this is her spoon. I also have her knife, one of her knives from her set. Sorry. I just gave myself away. Oops.
Also, guys, this keeps getting more exciting. Davika is watching from India.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, amazing.
Like virtual.
I hope I
welcome
said that name correctly, but that's very exciting. Yes.
You know, I'm going to follow in Corinne's footsteps tonight and add just a little bit more sugar.
Yeah.
It's pretty, what was that?
Tis the season.
It's a pretty amazing, like, powdered sugar, and all of a sudden with like 1 teaspoon of any liquid, like all of a sudden disappears.
And can you confirm, just to make sure for somebody asking, all you have in that bowl, powdered sugar, Aperol, and is there anything else?
And orange. Yep.
Orange. Okay. Yep.
And again, I start somewhere with like a 2-to-1 ratio for me, orange to the liqueur, and then kind of play with it from there. This is like the place between this glaze and the zest that we put into our loaf. This is where you can kind of play with flavors and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And every time you can make the same base recipe a million times and just change up the way that it is flavored. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a mess right now, okay? And I'm gonna show you, I'm just gonna take this and just kind of drizzle it over the top, right? And make a mess all over my countertop. Yeah. How's everyone feeling about that? How are you feeling about it, Corinne?
It looks good. And you said, I think it says in your recipe to make sure the loaf is fully cooled before you do that, right?
Correct. What's going to happen if it isn't cooled, it's just going to drizzle right off and melt right off. So the other thing you can do is, like, I'm going to just show you because I've made so many damn loaves in my time, that like you can just kind of put it over the whole top and kind of just let it drip off the sides, right?
Cool.
And if you give it a few seconds, it's going to like chill out on top there and set up. Kind of reminds
me. Okay, but how does that look so good? I guarantee you if I did that, it would look like a disaster, and yet you just sort of like made that look beautiful by just, you know, drizzling things on it. You know,
I've made a couple of these in my time.
Well, a lot of people are commenting, best drizzle we've seen, that's beautiful.
Yes.
People are impressed.
I love that. So, you know, the inside of this, we've got, I'm not sure if you can see this, but standard pound cake vibes going on in here. Nice little brown caramelized crust on the outside, a little bit of that bitter and sweet on the outside, some orange zest going on in here. It's super light and fluffy, but it's also got a little bit of that density that pound cake tends to have, right? Make sure you wrap this up, especially, this is the type of bread that, like, if you leave this open crumb down here, let me see if I can see myself. If you leave this open crumb out to the air for like, you know, more than a couple minutes, it's gonna start to dry out. But that's just a reality of a home baked good. There's no, you know, when we buy baked goods at the grocery store, they have a lot of preservatives in them and things that make it so it doesn't dry out as quickly as our home baked goods do. But like, this is really beautiful right now, super spongy, a little bit dense. It's so delicious. It's perfect for breakfast. You could change this up and add cinnamon to this. You could add any spice to this actual loaf and have it for breakfast. You can make it a cinnamon with just a plain vanilla icing on top of it.
Okay, but yeah. Otelia is asking that you quit smushing her piece.
Oh, Otelia. We all know Otelia, right? Otelia's
Also, Josh wants to know what time you will be delivering to our homes.
Okay. Well, tonight I'm going to go to bed right after this because I go to bed at like 9 o'clock every night. So hit me up tomorrow and I'll share some pieces of this because I cannot eat one more piece of cake today.
Shawn, I feel like we have to ask you, since we are social media breakfast.
Yeah.
What is your favorite social media platform?
Oh God, Instagram 100%. Instagram. Yeah. Okay, so I feel like, Corinne, I feel like we're witnessing this like time when all of the social media platforms that like we came to terms with, of like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all of these things. Like now all of a sudden all like the students at the university are doing these like new ones that I'm like, I'm still trying to work on how to figure out Instagram. Mm-hmm. I can't be doing TikToks and all of these things, but yeah, Instagram 100%. If you aren't following the Baked Lab, make sure you go right now, follow at the Baked Lab. We do, and by we, I mean me, because there's nobody else at the Baked Lab yet. Workshops all the time. Most of them are free. We also have a Sunday dinner edition series that I do every once in a while where we cook Sunday dinner together, and then you can share it with your families. Yeah.
Martha is just sort of commenting that I think if she feels like she might have goofed and let the icing be too wet. She says it's very sticky and gloppy. Is that?
So, okay. So there's a couple of things. If it's too thick, add a little bit more liquid, orange, okay, whatever. If it's too thin, add a little bit more powdered sugar back in there. You can literally, before you drop this onto your loaf, you can change the consistency up until that second. It's one of those things that's super forgiving.
That's good to know. And Charlene is asking, how long should you leave the loaf before cutting into it? Can you eat it right away? Should you sort of like let it sit for a bit?
It's going to be super hot when it comes out of the oven. So I would definitely let it cool down a little bit. Warm, like a warm loaf is delicious. So, I would give it a little while to cool down so you can actually touch it. But if it's warm, it's still fine. Just remember that if you're putting glaze on top of it, it's not as, it needs to be completely cool basically, or it's just going to fall right off. If you can see, I don't know if we can get another shot of this, but the glaze is starting to like adhere to it. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm just making a sticky mess everywhere because I just did this on my counter, but it's like so cool because it's got that like shiny vibe to it. But it's
and like, can you clarify for those of us who don't know? Melissa's asking this, but I'm curious as well. Is a pound cake also a sponge cake, or what are what's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, it's not exact. A sponge cake is really just like any cake that that sort of has a sponge type texture to it, right? As opposed to, I mean, you can get really technical. This is a pound cake through and through. I wouldn't necessarily call it a sponge cake.
Okay. And Jill wants to know if she's baking this tonight, can she glaze it tomorrow?
Totally, 100%. Okay. Just wrap it up. I would wrap it in some plastic wrap or something like that. This is the type of bread that I would leave out on the counter wrapped up. I wouldn't put it in the refrigerator. All that butter that we baked into there, regardless of if it's melted at this point, it is going to firm up once it gets back into the refrigerator. So if you put this in the refrigerator and take it out and try to take a bite, it's going to be a little bit thicker than maybe you want your cake to be. Yeah. So what I would do is cut a slice if you do that and throw it in the microwave. Another thing is if you've been, if it's like day 3 and you've still got a little left, which I'd be surprised, and it's a little dry, throw a slice in the microwave for 10 seconds. Usually adds like a little bit of moisture back into it for a hot second, and it's not as like crumbly.
Well, Martha had the idea and is asking, to that end, can you let it harden and like use it in like a bread pudding or something? Like she wants to take this to the next level.
Oh yeah, 100%. Totally do that. Chop it up. Another thing that's really delicious with a pound cake is in the morning, cut a slice. It's a little harder with the glaze, but if you're just using a normal like pound cake that doesn't have a glaze on it, you can put it like sear it on in a skillet with some butter. Ooh. And it gets like a nice crispy outside, like on
wow,
this piece right here, like butter that and put it right onto the skillet and get like a nice brown crust on it, like you would on like a French toast or something like that.
And I mean, that sounds delicious. I think the people who are watching have some very creative ideas that, once again, I think they're just looking for some validation from the expert here. But Doria is asking about putting poppy seeds in the mix.
Totally. Lemon poppy seeds, perfect combination.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is double this recipe or times it by 1.5. It'll get a little bit higher of a cake, obviously, a little bit more batter.
Yeah. Also, I would be remiss in saying, essentially, we are, again, as Corinne alluded to, social media breakfast. So please post photos of your loaves, tag us, tag Shawn, use the hashtag SMBMad. We want to see what your finished product looks like, whether that's now or tomorrow, or you bake it this weekend. Please share it with us. We'd love to see.
100%. We love that. And we will definitely, I will reshare all of your beautiful creations. So everybody.
You're also really blowing people's minds with this idea of seared or fried cake. People are, I think you started something perhaps.
Come on. Like literally take this slice right here. It's got both sides going on, right? Put some butter in it or in the pan and put this on the pan and it's going to get that like crispy outside and soft inside. Oh my God. Sign me up. This is why I'm, 25 pounds heavier now that I bake a lot.
Well, as Corinne said, 'tis the season, right?
Yeah.
Is this recipe, we put it up on our page. It's going to stay on our page. It's not going anywhere. Some people were asking about the recipe, so you can refer back to it later. I'm going to answer that question for you. But yes, please make sure that you check out the recipe, use it later, share it. This video is going to be here for a while too. And so you can rewatch it later if you want to make this all later. But the comments are blowing up, Shawn. People are a fan of you. And your work and this recipe. Joy is asking, do you have ideas for topping if it's grilled?
Ooh, I mean, come on, like a little fresh whipped cream on top and some berries. Does it get any better? Like take some strawberries during the summer or take some like blackberries and add a little bit of like sugar and liquor to the berries and mix them up. This is like also a perfect, like that's like a perfect dinner party dessert. Like you can make this loaf that like the day before or something, wrap it up and then like have it to cut up and share with like fresh berries and fresh whipped cream the next day. Perfect.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you can always shoot me a message on Instagram if you lost the recipe, can't find it, have questions. I try to respond to everybody pretty quickly and love to talk about baking with anybody. So definitely reach out.
Well, yeah, I think, David, are there any more questions or should we wrap it up here?
I think we can wrap it up. It looks like we've got to all the questions. Thank you, everybody, for just the really interesting and insightful questions and comments. Thank you, people, for watching from so far away. We went international tonight, social media breakfast. So that's very exciting.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I hope to see everybody in my inbox on Instagram sharing their loaves.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks again, Shawn, for joining us. Hope everyone has a great holiday season. And I have to say it, we will see you in the new year. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.